Think back to a key decision in your life: choosing a career, moving to a new city. The moment you chose your partner, you felt it was your own unique, free choice, didn't you? But what if that feeling is just an illusion? Part of a pre-written script that has been played out millions of times before you. It sounds absurd. You order food through an app and follow Elon Musk's plans. What kind of stories about dragons and gods could possibly control your behavior? But this isn't about mysticism. It's about the psychic operating system that Carl Jung uncovered. Its programs, the archetypes, run in the background like invisible code, shaping your reactions, desires, and fears. For 16 years, Jung secretly kept his Red Book, a massive tome where he documented his terrifying visions with calligraphic script and colorful illustrations to map this system. And to prove that this code is running inside you too, I will ask you 3 questions, whose answers will change how you see your own behavior. These are not rhetorical questions. They are 3 keys to 3 different files in your psyche. The first key, the paradox of virtue. Why do people who desperately strive to be good and suppress all their negative traits end up suffering from sudden, destructive breakdowns far more often than those who acknowledge their dark side? The answer to this question awaits you in the 6th section. The second key, the paradox of success. What do 90% of the highest-grossing blockbusters, from Star Wars to the Avengers, have in common? They simply retell the same ancient myths. How does this simple formula continue to earn billions if we all value originality so much? We'll break down this mechanism in the 8th section. The third key, the paradox of knowledge. How could Jung's patients in the early 20th century describe symbols from Sumerian myths in detail, symbols that even history professors were unaware of? Where did they get this data? We will begin to answer this most important question in the very next section. By the end of this video, what seemed like a random event, choosing a partner, a career crisis, a sudden impulse, will reveal itself as part of a predictable pattern. You will stop acting blindly, driven by unseen forces. You will receive a map of these forces, admin access to your own psyche. You will be able to see which program is active at any given moment and where it is leading you. Understanding archetypes is like studying the currents in a river. Without this knowledge, you fight against the water and exhaust yourself. With it, you use the power of the stream to reach your destination faster and with less effort. We won't just study theory. You will try on 3 key roles that define 90% of life's scenarios: the hero, the sage, and the trickster. Have you ever felt like you're going in circles, repeating the same mistakes in relationships or your career? Here are 3 key points in our investigation that you can't miss. First marker, 4 minutes in. Together with Jung, we will make the most important discovery in 20th century psychology and hack your psyche's operating system, the collective unconscious. You will understand where these programs come from. Second marker, 14 minutes in. You will come face to face with your inner demon, the shadow archetype, and I will prove why trying to defeat it is a guaranteed path to self-destruction, while befriending it is the key to true strength. Third marker, 19 minutes in. We will leave the psychologist's office and see how Apple, Nike, and Hollywood use these ancient codes to make you want to buy their products. More than 6,000 pages of his published works lead to this moment. This will be the culmination of our investigation. In 4 minutes, you will learn how a shared cloud memory for all of humanity was discovered. The discovery began with a single dream. An uneducated patient of Jung's described a vision, a phallic tube on the sun from which the wind was blowing. How could he have known this complex symbol from the ancient cult of Mithras, which only a few historians had read about at the time? His teacher Sigmund Freud offered a simple answer. It was an encrypted image from the patient's personal experience, a hidden desire or trauma. Everything in our minds is a product of our own lives. But Jung began to collect data and found hundreds of similar cases. Soldiers, housewives, and businessmen saw identical symbols from alchemy and the myths of dead civilizations in their dreams. This was no longer an anomaly but a pattern. It was as if people who had never seen a computer started drawing schematics of motherboards. This led Jung to a conclusion: beneath the thin layer of our personal memory lies an ocean of the collective unconscious. a shared psychic DNA. And if this operating system is shared, it must have default programs installed. This fact breaks all logic. Myths about a great flood or a hero descending into the underworld are found among peoples separated by oceans and millennia. How could the ancient Egyptians and the Mayan Indians tell strikingly similar stories? A simple theory suggests migratory stories. Tales travel with merchants and warriors, and one culture borrows them from another. But when Jung's follower Joseph Campbell analyzed these myths, he found the same basic plot: the hero's journey in over 500 independent cultures. Many of them, like the tribes of the Amazon, were completely isolated. The probability that this complex plot reached them through cultural exchange is statistically zero. This means only one thing: the source of these stories is not external, but internal. People don't borrow these plots, they find them within themselves. These are not migratory stories, but a built-in map of human experience. And the most important of these plots is the one shaping your career and your goals right now. It was this discovery that led Carl Jung, whom Freud called his crown prince, to break with his mentor. The official story, a dispute over libido theory. For Freud, all unconscious energy was sexual. All myths and religions were merely sublimations of repressed desires. But for Jung, this was a monstrous oversimplification. Analyzing dreams and myths, he saw not only sex but also a search for meaning and spiritual motives that could not be reduced to biology. Freud called this the black tide of mud of occultism, and demanded that Jung make pansexualism an unshakable dogma, a defense against the dark flood of irrationality. At that moment, Jung realized their paths had diverged. It was a choice between two views of humanity: man as a collection of instincts, or man as a carrier of timeless myths. Jung chose the second, more dangerous path, and this path led him directly to the study of those very ancient programs. But how are they organized? A simple analogy: they are folders on a hard drive, a mother folder, a hero folder, where all related images are stored. This metaphor is convenient, but it creates a false sense of control. The reality is far more unsettling. Archetypes are not passive folders. They are living, autonomous programs within us, each with its own will and energy. They can be activated without our control by external events: a crisis, love, danger. When an archetype is active, it can temporarily seize control, forcing us to act in predictable ways. That's why, in a crisis, you suddenly start acting like a hero from a myth. And when faced with a complex problem, like a sage. You don't decide to do it, the program simply runs. And now, we will unpack the first and most important of them all, the one that is defining your life path right now. The story of Steve Jobs' departure from Apple and his triumphant return is strikingly similar to the plot of Star Wars. Why does your own career crisis intuitively follow the same steps? This is a universal success script that we all unconsciously play out. The obvious answer is that these are all stories of overcoming adversity. This is true, but too general. It doesn't explain why the structure of this journey is always the same. In fact, this plot of the monomyth has been found in over 500 independent cultures. And it's not about abstract difficulties, but a specific, repeating sequence of 12 steps from the call to adventure to the return with the elixir. This very structure is the foundation of 90% of Hollywood blockbusters. This structure is the practical manifestation of the hero archetype. It's not just a story, but a psychological map of transformation. And it all begins with the first step, which most people ignore their entire lives: the call. But the next, even more crucial step is the refusal of the call. Why do we fear the very opportunities that could change our lives for the better? A new job, a move, the start of a relationship. Why is the first impulse often, "No, that's too risky"? Psychologists explain this as a fear of change. Our brain avoids risk. This is logical, but superficial. It makes us think it's a personal cowardice that needs to be overcome. But this fear is not a bug. It's a mandatory stage of the script. Luke Skywalker initially refuses to go with Obi-Wan. Neo doesn't believe he is the one. Every mythological hero first says no. This proves the stakes are high. It's not your unique weakness, it's a universal part of the process. The hero must refuse for the journey to have meaning. Overcoming this stage requires a catalyst, and often it comes in the form of another archetype, the sage. But even with a mentor, the hero faces an encounter that will change him forever, the meeting with the dragon. Why do the toughest crises, a layoff, a breakup, a failure, often become the starting point for the most powerful growth? What psychological mechanism turns defeat into victory? The common explanation is that we learn from our mistakes and become more resilient. This only describes the external process. It doesn't explain the internal feeling of rebirth. In the structure of the monomyth, this stage is called meeting the dragon or entering the belly of the whale. It's the point of maximum despair. But the goal isn't just to win. It is the symbolic death of the old self, its beliefs and weaknesses. The hero must die to be reborn. The psychological meaning is immense. To gain new strength, the elixir, one must voluntarily give up the old identity. Jung himself experienced this when, after his break with Freud, he spent 4 years exploring his visions. This was his personal belly of the whale. But defeating the dragon is only half the battle. The most insidious trap awaits on the way back. It turns out that the triumphant return home can be more dangerous than the battle with the monster. What happens after a great victory? Why do so many champions turn to alcohol and so many entrepreneurs lose everything after dizzying success? Why does achieving a goal often lead to depression? This is explained as burnout or arrival fallacy. When the goal is reached, a void appears. This describes the symptom, not the cause. In the archetypal script, personal victory is not the finale. The main stage is the return with the elixir. The elixir is the knowledge or experience the hero has acquired. His task is not to enjoy it alone, but to bring it back to his tribe. If the hero keeps the elixir for himself, succumbing to pride, his victory becomes meaningless. Statistics show that up to 75% of major lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years. This is the ego trap. The true hero is not the one who won, but the one who returned and shared. And to avoid this trap, the hero needs another inner guide. This guide is the sage archetype. Why do we automatically trust someone in a white coat or with a PhD? Stanley Milgram's 1961 experiment showed that ordinary people are willing to inflict pain on others if an authority figure in a lab coat orders them to. The simple explanation is social learning. From childhood, we are taught to listen to teachers and doctors, but this respect runs deeper than habit. It's the activation of the sage archetype. When we face chaos, we feel a need not for information, but for meaning. We're not looking for Google, we're looking for Gandalf. This is the positive function of the sage, our inner compass, seeking truth. But this compass has a dark side that leads to an intellectual dead end. This trap is called the ivory tower. How do brilliant scientists and genius strategists make catastrophically foolish decisions? Why doesn't high intelligence protect against mistakes, and sometimes even makes them worse? The common explanation is that theory diverges from practice. This states the fact, not the cause. In reality, this is the shadow side of the sage. His greatest danger is falling in love with the beauty of his own theory so much that he starts to ignore reality. It's like creating a perfect map. It's logical, but if you stop checking it against the world, you won't notice that the bridge you drew is now a gaping chasm. The clearest example is Sigmund Freud, who by the end of his life ignored any data that didn't fit his theory. When the sage stops doubting, he becomes a tyrant. To escape this prison, the psyche needs someone who hates all rules. The name of this liberator is the Trickster. What is intellectual pride? Jung considered it one of the most dangerous traps capable of destroying a brilliant mind. Why? The common definition is thinking you are smarter than others. This is unpleasant, but it doesn't seem too dangerous. The Jungian understanding is deeper. It is the fundamental belief that the rational mind can fully comprehend the universe. The belief that everything irrational and mysterious is nonsense that should be discarded. This belief is the sage's Achilles heel. People with high IQs are more prone to a blind spot regarding their own biases because they are more skilled at rationalizing their mistakes. By denying chaos, the sage becomes blind to it. And it is into this abyss that he is pushed by the one who is the embodiment of chaos. For wisdom not to become a prison, it needs an enemy who will tear down its walls. So how can one be wise without becoming a dogmatist? Is there a path to knowledge that doesn't end in an ivory tower? Popular psychology advises being open to new experiences. These are good, but overly general words. The Jungian answer is more radical. You must accept chaos as a valuable part of yourself. True wisdom is not the victory of order over chaos, but their dynamic equilibrium. The sage must not just tolerate but respect his inner fool. A detail that explains everything in tarot cards, the Fool or Trickster, is numbered 0. It can stand at the beginning or the end of the journey. This means that without this energy of spontaneity, it is impossible to either begin the path to wisdom or complete it. Wisdom is a dance between knowing and not knowing. And now we will meet the chief agent of chaos in your soul. It's time to meet your inner Joker. Why do characters like the Joker, Loki, or Dr. House evoke such fascination? In real life, we would fear and avoid them. But on screen, we admire their wit and unpredictability. What makes us sympathize with those who sow chaos? A simple explanation is escapism. We live in a world of rules and restrictions, and we enjoy watching someone break them. It's a safe way to let off steam. However, the reality is more complex. We are drawn to them for more than just destruction. We see in them the manifestation of the trickster archetype, a figure who exposes the hypocrisy and absurdity of the existing order. He asks uncomfortable questions, doing what we secretly dare not do. The key function of the trickster is to be a safety valve. When a system becomes too rigid and dogmatic, he blows it up from the inside to make way for the new. It turns out that a silly joke can be a powerful tool for transformation. Think of a tense situation in a meeting where one well-timed joke completely diffused the tension and allowed for a solution to be found. How does that work? Why is laughter more effective than the most compelling arguments when logic hits a dead end? The standard answer is that humor relieves stress. This is true, but it doesn't explain why it also helps find a way out. In reality, this is the trickster at work. He doesn't just relieve tension, he changes the rules of the game. He introduces an element of absurdity, shatters the pretense, and deflates the inflated ego, which allows the situation to be seen from a completely new perspective. Medieval jesters were the only ones who could speak the truth to kings because they did it in the form of a joke. The trickster is your inner jester, protecting you from your own tyranny. But sometimes his jokes turn very cruel. This happens when you ignore your shadow for too long. Why does the ironclad decision to quit smoking on Monday so often end in failure by Wednesday? We use all our willpower. The common belief is that we simply lack willpower. This makes us feel weak, starting a cycle of self-flagellation. From an archetypal perspective, this is a battle between your conscious self and the inner trickster, for whom rules and prohibitions are a challenge. The harder you push, the more fiercely he resists. A direct attack on the trickster only strengthens him and turns the struggle into a fascinating game for him. The only way to defeat the trickster is to trick him. Instead of a total ban, you can offer him a deal or turn quitting into a game. To manage chaos, you need cunning, not force. But there is a part of you that cannot be negotiated with. It can only be known and accepted. What is the fundamental difference between a harmless prankster and a dangerous psychopath? Where is the line where the trickster's chaos turns into real evil? One could say a villain intends to harm, while a trickster just wants to have fun. This distinction is correct, but it doesn't explain the mechanism of transformation. The picture changes when we introduce another element, the shadow. The shadow is everything we reject and suppress in ourselves: envy, aggression, greed. The trickster himself is immoral, he is pure energy. But when this uncontrolled energy combines with the repressed negativity of the shadow, disaster strikes. The trickster gives form and energy to what is simmering in the basement of our psyche. An innocent joke becomes poisonous sarcasm, a prank becomes cruel bullying. And now we will descend into the dark basement to answer the first question I asked at the beginning. So, the answer to the first question: Why are people who desperately strive to be good statistically more likely to find themselves at the center of major scandals? Their public image contradicts their secret actions. The obvious explanation is hypocrisy. People simply hide their true nature for social approval. But the reality is far more complex. It's not about hiding, but active suppression. It works like heating water in a sealed container. The more pressure you put on your aggression, envy, or sexuality, the more energy they accumulate. A breakdown is not a moral failure, but a desperate and inevitable attempt by the psyche to restore balance. It's a dam that is bound to break. But the most surprising thing is that you see your shadow every day, in the faces of those who annoy you beyond measure. What is it about others that drives you crazy? Laziness, arrogance, boasting? For a second, picture a specific person who irritates you. Why is your reaction to their qualities so strong, as if they personally threaten you? The simple answer is a clash of personalities. We dislike people who violate our internal rules. But Jung's psychology offers a deeper, more unsettling view. The psyche, unwilling to acknowledge a negative quality in itself, projects it outward and sees it in another person. That person becomes a screen for our own shadow. The stronger the emotion, the more accurate the projection. Right now, think about a quality that infuriates you in someone else. Now ask yourself honestly, where in my life am I afraid or unwilling to show even a hint of this? Jung himself went beyond simple self-analysis. He conducted the most radical experiment in meeting the shadow in the history of psychology. Why would a world-renowned scientist secretly keep a massive red book for 16 years, documenting his most terrifying nightmares? It could have been a hobby, art therapy after his break with Freud. But the truth is that the red book was the central scientific experiment of his life. It was the protocol of his conscious descent into the collective unconscious. He didn't just record dreams, he used the method of active imagination, entering into a dialogue with his inner figures, his shadow, his inner sage. He was literally balancing on the edge of psychosis to prove his theory on himself. He did this to show that confronting inner demons doesn't kill you, it makes you whole. Integrating the shadow is the highest form of intellectual courage. But the shadow is not the only inner figure. There is another one that secretly decides who you fall in love with. So what does it mean in practice to integrate the shadow? To just tell yourself, I'm lazy and aggressive and that's okay? It sounds like an excuse. Popular psychology says to accept your flaws. It's an act of self-compassion, but in reality, it's something far more radical. Integration is not just acceptance, but transformation. It's the realization that every shadow trait contains a resource. In suppressed aggression lies the energy to defend your boundaries. In envy, precise information about our true desires. In fear, the key to caution. Integrating the shadow is an alchemical process of turning poison into medicine. An unintegrated shadow poisons us. An integrated one becomes a source of strength. Now that we've met our inner enemy, it's time to meet our inner beloved. The phantom force that governs our romantic choices. Why do you fall in love with the same type of person over and over again, even if past relationships with them ended in disaster? A woman chooses emotionally unavailable men. A man chooses women who need saving. Is this bad luck, or is there a program built into us? A simple explanation is that we seek the familiar, repeating childhood relationship patterns with our parents. This is true, but it's not the whole story. There's a nuance that explains the irrational power of attraction itself. Jung called it the anima for men and the animus for women, the unconscious image of an ideal partner. It works like a template. We carry this pattern within us, and upon meeting someone, we place the template over them, falling in love not with them, but with our own projection. This is a 99% unconscious process. It's what creates that chemistry, the feeling that you've found a lost part of your soul. But where does this phantom image come from? Who drew it? Your inner ideal is assembled from 3 layers. The first brushstroke is indeed the image of the parent of the opposite sex. The second layer is collective myths from culture, knights, princesses, rebels from movies. But there is a third most important layer. This image contains the qualities of your own personality that you suppress as not conforming to your gender. For a man, this might be emotionality. For a woman, decisiveness. In essence, your ideal partner is a mirror of your own shadow. The problem is that this collage is often infantile and contradictory. Chasing this phantom is the main reason for romantic disappointments. And the moment this phantom disappears is familiar to everyone. It's called the end of the honeymoon phase. What exactly happens when the rose-colored glasses come off? Where does the magic disappear? And why does yesterday's ideal now irritate you with minor flaws? The popular explanation is that infatuation has passed and daily life has begun. This is a convenient theory, but it doesn't explain the depth of the disappointment. In reality, the projection is peeling away. You suddenly see a real, imperfect person, not your inner god. This causes shock and a feeling of being deceived, even though you were deceiving yourself. On average, this crisis occurs 12 to 18 months into a relationship, which coincides with the peak time for divorces. There are two paths here. The first, reject the partner and go find a new screen for your projection. The second, accept reality and start building a real relationship. But Jung argued there is a third, most productive path, to use this crisis for your own incredible growth. How can you turn disappointment in a partner into a tool for self-discovery? Popular psychology advises talking more and seeking compromises. These are actions aimed at fixing the external. The Jungian path is more radical. Take your projection back. Instead of demanding that your partner possess the qualities of your ideal, ask yourself, what traits that I so desperately seek in them do I need to develop in myself? If you seek support in them, perhaps you need to develop your own inner support. If their indecisiveness drives you crazy, perhaps you need to integrate your own capacity for reflection. A true partner is not someone who completes us, but someone who best reflects what we lack for our own wholeness. We have learned to see archetypes in ourselves and our relationships. But what if they are everywhere? And what if someone has long been using them to control us without our knowledge? And so, the answer to the second question: how is it possible that over 90% of the highest-grossing films in history, from Star Wars to The Avengers, tell the same story? The cynical answer is that it's a proven commercial formula. Studios don't take risks, and audiences love the familiar. But the reality is more sophisticated. This formula is a direct application of the ideas of Jung's follower, Joseph Campbell. In 1975, George Lucas completely rewrote the failing script for Star Wars, following the chapters of Campbell's book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. This isn't exploiting a cliché. It's hacking our psychic operating system. We pay billions not for novelty, but for deep, unconscious recognition. But movies are just the training ground. The same technology is selling you sneakers, smartphones, and political leaders right now. Why are you willing to pay $200 for Nike sneakers when you can get a similar pair for $50? The standard answer is status and prestige, but it goes deeper. Nike doesn't sell shoes, it sells the hero archetype. Their slogan, "Just do it," is a call to overcome. Apple doesn't sell a phone, it sells the rebel archetype. Their Think Different campaign is a hymn to nonconformity. Advertisements barely talk about the product, they tell a myth. Buying such an item is like buying a key. You're not paying for a piece of metal, but for access to a space where you can feel like a hero. Corporations have hacked the collective unconscious. They are selling us identities on an installment plan. And if this technology can make you buy a product, imagine how easily it can make you choose the right politician. Why do political campaigns focus so much on image and so little on policy? It's commonly believed that politics is a show, and people vote with their hearts. But political strategists work like screenwriters. They package a candidate into one of four archetypes: the wise ruler, the heroic warrior, the everyman, or the trickster. Studies show that up to 70% of campaign budgets are spent on creating this image. We vote not for a person, but for the myth they embody, which makes us vulnerable to manipulation. So we are being controlled through ancient codes. Does this mean we are merely puppets? If archetypes are so deeply embedded in us and so effectively used by external forces, do we have free will? Perhaps less than we think. We are products of biology and unconscious programs. But Jung provided a key to liberation. In 1934, he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Archetypes are not a sentence, but a potential. Unconscious, they act as blind fate. Conscious, they become tools. Knowledge is the only real power. You cannot delete these programs, but you can become their administrator. How to do this and bring all the pieces together is in the final section. Your psyche is not a monolith. It is a stage on which a whole troupe of actors constantly interacts. Trying to be just one of them is doomed to fail because it ignores all the others. Think about the decision to change jobs. Your inner hero shouts, "Forward to new achievements." Your sage whispers, "Wait, analyze all the risks." And your trickster suggests, "Drop everything and move to Bali." This internal conflict is not a pathology, but the normal functioning of your team. Harmony is born not when one soloist sings, but when they learn to sing together. The first step from being a blind actor to a seeing director is to learn to recognize the voice of each of them. But this team is incomplete. We have not yet considered two of the most influential yet hidden players. There are two special members on this team. The first is the one everyone fears and has banished to the basement, your shadow. The second is the one whose role you have outsourced to other people, your anima or animus. Without the energy locked in the shadow, your hero becomes toothless, your sage becomes cowardly, and your trickster becomes truly destructive. The suppressed shadow can contain up to 50% of your unused psychic energy. To integrate the shadow is to bring this exiled player back onto the team, making it stronger. To stop projecting your ideal onto partners and to recognize these qualities in yourself is to reclaim another powerful player. Wholeness, which Jung called individuation, is not the victory of good archetypes over bad ones. It is their harmonious union. It is the ability to use the energy of each of them at the right moment. This is the final distinction between two life stances. The first is the position of the actor. An unconscious person is an actor who simply plays the role given to them by the dominant archetype or situation. They call it my character or fate. They see no other options. They are a slave to the script. The second is the position of the director. A conscious person knows the entire script and all the actors. In a situation that requires a breakthrough, they bring the hero onto the stage. In a situation that requires analysis, the sage. When the system is stuck, the trickster. They do not identify with any single role but use them all. To be an actor is to be in a boat without oars at the mercy of the unconscious current. To be a director is to take the helm and sail. The current is still there, but now you can use its power to move towards your goal. We have come a long way, from the mystery of our behavior to the map of our soul. We have seen the internal forces that drive us and the external ones that try to control us. After everything you have learned today, who do you feel you are more like? An actor, continuing to play out an ancient script, or a director, ready to take control? No long explanations are needed. Just write a single word in the comments below this video. Actor or director, this will be your declaration of intent to yourself. 2 paths, 1 word, your choice.